All right, welcome to today's build. What we're going to be using and doing is we're going to be making some light fixtures or wall sconces for our scene using poly modeling tools. This might not be your first choice, but the reason I chose these is because it's going to go through a number of tools that I wanted to show you, and I wanted some movement on here so we could set up some different links, and then you can figure out how to make some adjustments. So I just went on a web engine, did a search for a wall sconce. I wanted an angled shade so that we can show you how to do some of the poly modeling on that. We haven't done a lot of that together, at least. Maybe you figure some of this out. So let's try to duplicate this using some real life dimensions, and a lot of it's going to be eyeballing to make sure that this kind of looks right. So I'm just going to start a new file here and we'll get going. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is start working on building the base plate, and then I'm going to do this arm. It has these two, we're going to call these articulating ball hinges, and that's where it's going to rotate on, and then we will have the head of the lamp as we go. So let's maximize this. I'm going to set up my workspace so I have a 4x4 window to work with. And we're going to be using all the different windows to model in, and you'll see how and why. So let's grab our create tab, and we're going to just start with a cylinder. I'm just going to drop one in here and make it like this, and we'll adjust the sizes over here. My brain, when I'm doing this, likes to think in diameter, but this cuts everything into radius. So I just have to cut it in half to get the radius. So I want this, this in real life, this wall plate, this is what goes on the wall, is about 4 inches. So that would be the diameter. Half of that would be 2. So I'm going to set it as 2. And I'm going to set it as 1 inch high. So we're going to model everything from the ground up kind of flat, and then we'll have to rotate it 90 degrees. So it looks small, but then I'll just zoom in. I made this base a little bit longer than maybe normal so that we could have part of it dip into a wall. And that way, if you have it on a slanted surface, it's not a huge deal, but you'll be able to rotate that as well. We'll keep this simple 1 by 1 for segments because we're not going to do much on here. If you want to chamfer this and round it over, fine, go ahead and do that. But the next thing I'm going to do then, let me just make this kind of bronzy color here. I want to put a cylinder on here, and we're going to do that actually in one of these other views. So this is my front view. I'm going to zoom in on all 4 of these views here, and I can do it with the auto zoom. Kind of center this into the box. If you notice, this should, I forgot that puts it in perspective. We want this on top. So let's just zoom in. All right, so we can see what's going on in every one of these views. So I'm going to grab a cylinder now. If I use auto grid, it will start drawing on top of here, but I'm not going to do that because I'm not going from here up. I'm just going to draw a circle. This is going to be a tube here, and the radius for this tube is going to be 3/4 of an the diameter is 3/4 of an inch. So that, and we can just drop it. I don't want it that long, so we'll just drop it here. Let's change this. So half of 0.75 would be 0.375 for the radius. That would be a 3/4 inch tube. And we're going to make it 2 inches long. Okay. And this is why we're using these different views here. So I can grab it here. I'm going to grab my move tool, and we're just going to kind of align things visually in my different views. And this is where the 4 windows really comes in handy. I'm going to line this up centered on this box, bring it down, and I want it to just kind of touch off right here, as if it's welded to this plate. Now, from my top view here, I want this to be a little lower than center, okay? And this is where we're going to put our articulating ball hinge. Articulating just means it can change angles. Okay, so from there, let's put the sphere in. So I'm going to grab a sphere. I can do it from here, I guess. And remember, spheres draw from center out. So draw a sphere, and this is going to be a let's see, if a 1-inch sphere, so we'll make the radius a 1/2 inch, so 0.5, okay? And we want to drag this down so that the sphere is entering the cylinder here, as if it's part or welded into there or drilled a hole in there. So we're going to move it in our foreseen. So grab it. I'm going to slide it down. See if this makes sense. So I want the walls of this cylinder to line up like this. So it's completely inside the sphere. In this view, I'm going to click on it and drag it up so it's centered as well. And we can see it in here. And what I really wanted to do, I want this ball to really kind of be centered inside of the sphere of the cylinder, okay? That looks pretty close for all of our main concerns. All right, so I'm not so worried that dips down into the plate here. That's kind of perfect, actually. So next thing we need to do, let me bring our picture back here. We are looking at, where did it go? Here. So we have the wall plate here. I made it a little taller so we can put it in the wall. Here is our cylinder. Here's our articulating ball. So we need this 12, we're going to call this a 12-inch arm, 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to drag and do a cylinder from this top view. So if I turn on auto grid, maybe it will attach the cylinder here. And we're going to drag this out, and we're going to make this, this will go up. That's fine. I'm not so worried about it. Let's adjust it here. So the radius again is going to be 1/2 of 3/4 of an inch. So 3/4 of an inch is 0.75. 1/2 would be 3/8 or 0.375. You feel free to use these measurements. And then the height, we want to make 12 inches. So it's going to be a 12-inch arm. Okay, I'm not so worried about how that looks right now. You could do it a little longer if you'd like. You could do it 16 inches if you want it to, yours to be a little different design. So I'm not going to move this in this view. I want to move it in my left view. So come over here, grab my move tool. We're going to slide this up as well, and we want it to be inside of the cylinder so that the whole thing is just ready to touch off on there. Okay, does that make sense? I'm not worried about it being straight up and down. We will get back to that in a few minutes. So before we get any farther, we're going to model this, and I think we'll leave this off on our first video. We're going to name some of these things in our Scene Explorer here. If yours is not turned on, remember you can find it under Tools, turn on Scene Explorer, pop it up in here, and let's give all the different parts some names. So this first thing, let's call this wall plate. Okay, we're going to call it sconce. I don't know, you want to call it wall sconce. Let's call it sconce. That's the name of the type of light. It's a wall sconce. And this is the wall plate. Okay. From there, we had this. We're going to call this wall plate. It's a cylinder, so we'll keep it. We'll call it wall plate cylinder. Okay. I'm going to use underscore in between here because if you take web design, they teach you that underscore is a great way to put it. They also teach you not to use caps, but it's not a huge deal in this program. Wall plate cylinder, we're going to keep that as, we don't have to have that 02 anymore. We'll just call it wall plate cylinder 001. And then the next cylinder is this arm. So we're going to call this articulating arm. That means we can, hold we'll see if I crash here. Let's make sure you save it here. So save often. I don't have this saved, so I might lose it. So I'm gonna just call this, I'm gonna call it Wall Sconce 2023. Mine's a little different this year than any other ones that I've done. You can just call it Wall Sconce. And since this is, I'll call it 1.0. All right, should put my name on it as well. That way, if I turn it in, then I know. Wow, I might have to figure out a fix. I'm using my PC at home, so I don't know. Let me just pull that off to the side. Maybe I can keep going here. So, runtime. What we might have to do is I might have to come back and give me a sec. All right, thanks for letting me pause. I don't know what it was, so I'm just going to click on it here. I can double click to edit it there, but I can also go over here and modify and change the name of it here. I think I'm going to change the colors of these as well. So this one is going to be articulating arm. We'll call it sconce underscore wow, can't spell. Articulating arm. Okay, and then this is going to be articulating ball hinge. I think I also want to put the word sconce on here because as my scene gets really big, if I have a whole bunch of things in my scene explorer, I'm going to know that this belongs to my sconce, and I can do a word search for sconce and it will find all the parts. So So this may seem tedious, but as your drawings get bigger, it's going to be vital that you have everything organized. Otherwise, you just won't be able to find things easy. Or if you share this with somebody else's project. So I'm going to call this 001 because I'm going to have more than one and I'm going to clone it in a minute. Let's change my colors on these. I'm going to make them all looking kind of copper colored as well. And this one, okay, and then okay, and then this part was actually more yellow in my scene, so I will try that. And the last thing that we're going to do here is I'm going to clone this bottom ball hinge. Let me find it in my, select it there, hold down shift and clone it up to here. This is perfect being an instance. That way if I change the color on one, I can change it. It will automatically change on the other. And I just want to make sure it lines up. So drag this down and I want the whole thing. Yeah, I went a little high. So let's drag this back down a tiny bit. And perfect. I'm happy with it. All right, we're going to leave off there. The arm and the base is done. We're going to come back in and design the lamp shade itself, the light fixture part that's going to mount on here, and then we will add some pivot points and show how to change the angles on here. All right, thanks for joining me in this one. We will see you in part 2.